The real estate market is going to crash in 2026. Prices are collapsing. The economy is failing. Hell is freezing over. There's going to be demons running through the streets. We're absolutely cooked. We're finished. It's over. If you own a house in Hamilton, you're done. You're screwed. There's no coming back from this. Nah, I'm just kidding. In reality, the market for Hamilton in 2026 is actually shaping up to be pretty chill. In this video, I'm going to be giving my prediction for what I think is going to happen with Hamilton's real estate market in 2026. And if you stick around to the end, I'll be breaking down exactly what this means for you. Whether you're buying, selling, doesn't matter. I'll give my opinion as to what I think you should be doing, whether I think you should be moving, or if maybe you should be waiting for a better time. All right, real quick, my name is Steve Lopresti. If you don't know me, I'm a real estate agent in Hamilton, Ontario. I make videos like these, just trying to educate buyers and sellers about Hamilton, the neighborhoods, the real estate market in general. So if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out. All right, my prediction for 2026 is that the housing market is going to be mostly stable. I don't foresee any large changes in either direction. I don't see any huge dips, and I also don't see any massive increases either. I think it's going to be relatively stable across the year. Obviously, there's going to be some seasonal differences because in springtime, things tend to pick up a little bit. Winter, they tend to be a little bit slower. But in general, I think across the board, things are going to be relatively flat and relatively boring. And I'm not the only one who's saying this. A lot of experts, economists are predicting that this is going to be a year of stabilization, maybe a little bit of growth, but overall things are going to be pretty flat. This means that conditions are going to be relatively balanced for both buyers and sellers. Now, things have been leaning more towards a buyer's market as of late. There's been a lot of listings on the market, not that many sales have been happening, which has pushed us more into buyer territory. I do foresee the amount of sales to go up a little bit just because the last couple months they've been so freaking low, but I don't foresee a massive change in where prices currently are. Now, if we want to look at some actual data, the Canadian Real Estate Association is forecasting that national home sales will grow in 2026 by about 5% compared to 2025, suggesting a little bit more activity than last year. Again, that's just the amount of sales that happen. That's not the price. When it comes to price, they're predicting it'll be a little bit lower than that, maybe about a 3% increase, which is not huge. Most of the forecasters are calling 2026 the year where the market bottoms out. It just kind of stabilizes across the board. It doesn't really do too much, which honestly is probably the perfect market to be making a move in. You don't want to be making a move and then having something change dramatically a couple months later, either buying or selling. You don't want to sell and then see things skyrocket in price. And then you also don't want to buy and then see things plummet in price at the same time. If things stay relatively stable, then you know that you're making a good choice. Now, in order to make a prediction about what's going to happen tomorrow, we first have to look at what happened yesterday. So we're going to do a quick review of what happened with Hamilton's real estate in 2025, get an idea of what's happening and why I think that prices aren't going to change too dramatically in 2026. And yes, for those of you that are waiting for prices to fall, I don't see that happening, and here's why. So if you weren't paying attention, the Hamilton market for 2025 was very slow. Sales across the board were almost non-existent, and prices absolutely plummeted. For some context, the average home in Hamilton in January was about $750,000. That was the average. And in December of 2025, it was about $660,000. So we were almost $100,000 lower from the beginning of the year to the end of the year in the average price. Check out this graph here. So we have the residential prices from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. You see that gray line in the middle, that is the average price. So you see at the beginning of the year, it was between 800, 750, somewhere in that range. That was at the beginning of the year. And then as you get towards the end of the year, you see in the last quarter, it completely plummets. So prices were relatively stable throughout the year. There was a bit of a spike in the summertime, and then it's again relatively stable, came down a bit, and then it just plummets right at the end of the year. So our average price is sitting right now at about $663,000 across Hamilton. So when you look at this graph, a couple things stand out. The prices were higher in the summer than they were in the spring, which is not usually typical. Usually we see a
spike in the springtime, and then it starts to kind of taper off in the summertime. But we're seeing that it kind of shifted, it looks like. And then they just dramatically fell off a cliff. Like, it's completely insane how much they dropped.
So the reason why I don't think that there's going to be a crash happening in 2026 is because I think most of it is already done. We might continue to taper down a little bit over the next couple months, but I think we've mostly hit the bottom. I don't see a scenario in which things can get too much worse than this. Now, that being said, 2025 was a really bad year for real estate, but it didn't start out that way. January was actually pretty decent. We saw some decent sales volume. Things were happening. And then the whole Trump tariffs thing came along, and that really just screwed everybody over to the point where the rest of the year was pretty much flat. Now, I think if that hadn't have happened, then 2025 actually would have been a pretty good year overall. I think we would have seen quite a bit of listings. I think prices probably would have come up a little bit instead of going down the way they did. Now, unless there's another black swan event that happens in 2026 that pushes prices down even further, I don't see the same thing happening for this year. That was something that was really concerning for a lot of the clients that I had. It was a conversation I was having almost daily. Both buyers and sellers alike were concerned about what was happening down south. They were worried about if this is the right time to be buying, selling, and everybody was just waiting. But what I'm starting to see now over the last month or two is that people who have to move, they have to move. They're going to be making those moves regardless. And I think a lot of the people who were waiting for the right time and now they can't wait any longer, they're going to have to start making those moves. And I think that activity is going to start up again. And there's only so long that you can put your plans on hold for. Now, there's another factor, which is the unemployment rate, which is also affecting people's confidence in the market, both in where they think the market's going to go if they don't have job stability, but also in the fact that you can't buy a house if you don't have a job as well. So economic security has been impacting consumer confidence quite a bit. That's why I don't see prices going up either anytime soon. All right, so what does this actually mean for you if you're thinking about buying or selling a home in Hamilton in 2026? Well, if you're a buyer, this drop in price, I think, is a great opportunity for you. It means that you can buy something at a great discount. Will prices continue to drop further? I don't know. I can't tell. I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. I mean, this is kind of close, but yeah. So I don't know exactly where prices are going to go, especially over the next couple months. Really, you got to ask yourself, does it matter if you're buying something for the next 5, 10, 15 years? It doesn't really matter what happens in the short term, right? What matters is that you don't speculate. The people who lose money, especially during COVID, the people who bought homes way too high and paid way too much for them and lost a bunch of money, they were the ones that weren't buying for the home itself, that it didn't make sense to buy the home. They were speculating on the market, and that is how you get screwed. If the home itself makes sense, the payment makes sense, location that you're in makes sense, everything about the home itself makes sense today, and it will continue to make sense for years to come at the rates that you're currently paying and where it currently is, then it might make sense to buy it. The fact that there's a lot of listings right now and very little competition creates a nice, stable environment for you to take your time and find something that's right for you. All right, now if you're selling, now this is still good for you. A balanced market is good for both buyers and sellers. I think it is the most chill environment where there's the least amount of stress for all parties involved. You still have to be strategic with how you're pricing your home and how you're presenting your property, but we still have buyers that are winning and still selling for good prices, maybe not great prices like you could get a couple of years ago during COVID, but still good prices that they're happy with today in reasonable time frames. The fact that the market is relatively balanced and we're not seeing giant fluctuations is good, because that means you don't have to rush into selling your home because you're worried about getting a huge drop in your equity. You can take the time, clean the place up, and plan some of your move while you get the process started. You don't have to rush immediately doing it because you know that you're going to be losing $10,000 if you wait a month. All right, so here's the bottom line for 2026. Don't be expecting a massive crash. If you're buying, you're waiting for that. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm sorry. I think it already has happened, if anything. And also, don't be expecting a massive spike in prices either if you're waiting for that to sell. If you're thinking that now is the right time to be buying or selling, it's probably best to just start looking into that now, because we don't know where the future is going to take us. If it makes sense for you to buy or sell where things are today, you might as well just get the process started. Now, if it doesn't make sense for you to buy or sell where things are today, and you're waiting for either that giant spike or that giant crash for things to make sense for you, well then honestly, you're probably better off waiting. because most of the big adjustment happened in 2025. And again, I could be wrong. I'm just a guy on the internet, who knows, but also some of the other experts, the Canadian Real Estate Association, some top economists are also saying that things are going to be relatively stable in 2026. So don't just take my word for it. Now, if you are thinking about buying or selling a home in Hamilton and you want a personalized breakdown of how this will affect your plans for the coming year, reach out to me. We'll set up a quick one-on-one call. I'd love to help you out. And if you're interested in more beautiful, absolutely phenomenal Hamilton real estate content like this, check out this video over here for some other stuff that I've posted. Or if you want, you can hit this button on this side of the screen here so you can subscribe to the channel and not miss one. All right, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.